Hello again, friends. Welcome back to the Daniel-Mabry Project. This episode is with my friend Jordan Ellis. Jordan is recently hiked the Pacific Crest Trail, but he's been working in windmills for a long time, for about 3 years. And before that, he was a correctional officer and ended up becoming a sheriff's officer in Washita Parish. I've known Jordan for a very long time, and we pretty much just kind of go through his story there. We talk about, why he wanted to join corrections and where his passion comes from with that, and why he decided to ultimately leave there after he had been there for so long and worked his way up to where he strived to be. Of course, we swap trail stories and that kind of stuff too towards the end, and just really enjoyed getting to sit down and catch up with Jordan and talk about a little bit about what he's about to do and what his future holds for him. And I'm just really excited for him and what he's done and what he's going to do, and hope that I can catch up to him at some point. I really like his style. He's very humble and quiet and straight to the point, and I just really appreciate that. So if you want to support me in this podcast, the best way to do it is subscribe on YouTube or whatever listening platform that you're currently taking this podcast in on. I'm also on Facebook and Instagram. Instagram at Dose of DMP is the podcast. At Dan.Mabry is me. If you find monetary value in this podcast, I also have a Patreon page. I have quit my job and sold my house, and I'm pursuing photography, videography, and podcasting full time now. So I am currently in Dallas, Texas. But if you have any opportunities for me, I'd love to at least have a conversation about them. Please do not hesitate to reach out. Subscribe, share, comment, give it a thumbs up. All that kind of stuff is really appreciated and helps me grow this podcast. So I'm going to shut up and let the podcast roll. So everyone enjoy me and Jordan Ellis. All right. So, Jordan Ellis.
What's up?
Welcome to the program. That's a lame intro, but anyway. I've known Jordan for a long time now, all of his brothers, and Jordan recently hiked the Pacific Crest Trail and been working on windmills for a long time, and hiking the trail really got my attention, and so I reached out to him to come on the podcast, and finally able to do so. But I do want to start elsewhere. I really would like to know, so you were a sheriff's officer at one point in time.
Yeah. So,
you went to school, I guess. You went to college, yeah. To some degree.
I was enrolled in college, but
fair enough.
I was young and immature when I got out of high school. I was 17, and I just didn't go to class.
Yeah.
Simple enough. Blew all my scholarship money.
Where'd you go?
ULM.
Okay.
Couldn't tell you why I was not motivated to do it. Just wasn't the right timing, I guess. But, I think I have 60 credit hours or something.
Fair
somewhere
enough.
in that ballpark.
What were you studying?
At the time, criminal justice, but knowing what I know now, that was pretty much pointless.
Yeah. So at that point, you decided to go pursue that?
Yeah. So I got on just kind of as a part-time gig at the West Monroe City Jail as a contract officer. And I was still 18 or so and worked there until I was 21. And then I transferred over to the Washita Parish Sheriff's Office and did a couple years inside of OCC, the Correctional Center.
Yeah.
And then got my slot into the Police Academy, made it through that, and then got an interview with patrol, and then did not exactly sure how long, 1.5 2 years out on patrol.
Gotcha.
So
you were a guard for 5 years or something?
Yeah, pretty much 4.5, 5 years. And it's really a good place to learn how to talk to a very wide range of people anywhere. I'm generally more of a quiet person, kind of laid back, but there you have to interact with people that literally have nothing all the way up to, people who are just really wealthy. So you learn to talk to a lot of different demographics and different types of people. And it was, I think, really good for me to start out there.
Yeah. That you kind of got thrown into the fire to some degree, I would imagine.
It's crazy.
So, I guess what made you decide to leave that?
Man, honestly, I just was kind of at a point where there were some things that I really wanted to do while I was still young, and I didn't feel like at the time I could go do those at the sheriff's office. I mean, it's no mystery that law enforcement officers don't get paid very much money.
Right.
And I was given an opportunity to go work on the road on the wind turbines, and I felt like it was worth a shot. I mean, if I didn't like it, I could come back.
Yeah.
And really didn't know what to expect, but I was like, I have to give it a try. Give me some more opportunities.
Yeah. I mean, it makes me happy to hear you say that, like that you did do that, because
I mean, I'm not gonna lie, it was kind of scary, but
I can imagine. So you spent that much time to get to where you were at.
Yeah.
Like that. That's why I'm like, wow.
Yeah.
That was clearly a big decision to leave that behind. And obviously your dad is involved in that as well.
Yep.
He's a sheriff's officer as well.
Well, he was also probably, I don't know, maybe till 2011 or so.
All right, fair enough. But yeah, I mean, I can imagine there's some drive to stay in it.
Yeah.
Because of that as well.
Yeah, my dad was in it. Was a law enforcement officer for a while, and then on my mom's side, my grandfather was. I never met him, but you hear things through the years about his service, and so growing up is something you're kind of attracted to, and you're like, well, I'd like to see what it's about. So
yeah, but I guess when it comes down to it, like you say, you realize you're still young and there was still time left in the ticker. You wanted to go see the world a little bit, I guess.
Yep.
I guess, how did you get that opportunity? Where did you go first?
So my dad and one of my brothers, Casey, my younger brother, for those that don't know, I also have a twin brother. So if you see me and you think it's me and I ignore you, just no offense. It happens all the time. It's probably the other sibling. But, so they say, there's a spot coming up, maybe you should come try it. And for the longest time, I was like, man, I don't know about all that. I don't really too much like heights. I'm not climbing wind turbines like y'all crazy. And I eventually just jumped on it and did it. And the first job I ever went to was in South Texas, literally on the border.
Yeah.
Hidalgo, Texas. And that was a new construction project. And I was on the ground doing hub work, flipping hubs and stabbing them into the nacelle and rolling blades, setting it up for the guys who were going to fly those components up to the top of the tower, and kind of got my feet wet there.
Yeah, sounds greasy.
On new construction, it's not bad. Everything's just real nice and clean.
Yeah, fair enough.
But later I would transition into major component exchange, and
that's where it gets nasty.
It was nasty. Yeah.
So I guess how long you still do that now to some degree?
I actually just got back maybe a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
From Iowa doing a repower project. So right now there's a big push across the country. These sites that have been in service for 10, 15 years, they're getting incentives to repower their existing turbines and gut all the internals out, put new internals in and a new hub and bigger blades that are actually more efficient. So they make the same amount of power at a lower wind threshold.
Gotcha.
So
that sounds positive.
Yeah. Yeah. That's, some people say, oh, well, wind turbines aren't the most, economical thing, or they're not the most efficient things. Well, neither was the Model T Ford, but
Yeah.
you know, it's something that's just steadily progressing. So,
Right. It's a starting point.
yeah.
Yeah. That is a big thing that gets thrown around, is like it never offsets or whatever.
And some of those numbers that people throw out are, I don't think, very accurate. But
Yeah.
I try not to get too deep in the weeds on that.
And there's a gigantic variety of sizes and.
Yeah, I mean, there's wind turbines from the 80s that, they probably weren't that efficient.
Yeah.
And out there in California where I've worked before, you can see basically a timeline of wind turbines from then until now, and you can see why some people would have that impression.
Right. So have you like worked on every part of a wind turbine basically?
I mean, majority of it. I would never be one of those people to say that I've done everything, because people start saying that and you're like, okay.
Right.
But, pretty good bit. I mean, I've done all the internal stuff, swapping components out and most of the stuff in the hub, but haven't got deep into the weeds with like wiring, the electrical wiring, and that's usually something done by subcontractors or guys that are specific to GE. So
okay. Do you enjoy going up tower now?
Oh, I do. I love going up tower. I love being at a very high elevation where I can just see everywhere. But
for sure.
The first time I ever climbed one, I was like, "What have you got yourself into?"
Yeah.
Like, this is when you make it to the first deck and you're probably already like 50 feet up, 40 or 50 feet, and then you look up and you have another 240 something to go, and you're like, I don't know about all this.
And you're climbing a ladder, right? You got to climb a ladder.
Yeah, there's a ladder inside, and there's 3 to 4 decks depending on the turbine, and you can get off and rest, or you can just rest against the wall. The ladder's close enough to where you just sink your hips back and your back against the wall, and you can rest and not get off the ladder.
Mm-hmm. And you're like in a harness the whole time.
Oh yeah, 100% tie off anything above 6 foot. You have a steel cable that runs from the top of the ladder all the way to the bottom of the tower, and you have a device called a lad safe, and it basically locks in over the steel cable. If you fall, it catches and bites down on the steel.
Okay, all right.
So there's no
slides up
instead
freely.
of having to hook climb and then fall 12, 15 feet before the shock pack absorbs all your fall.
Mm-hmm. So it'll slide up freely and then catch and everything. That's cool. That's very. Somebody made a bunch of money.
Oh yeah, there's all kind of stuff going on in the industry right now about the lad safes, but they make some money off of them for sure.
Is that your job primarily now, is to go up tower, or you're constantly rotating?
They put me on a up tower crew. This repower project, I did all climbing and the component swaps up tower. The last one I was in before I went on that trip in Iowa was another repower project, but I was on the ground actually building the hub, attaching the blades to it and torquing them down and making sure that was all good to go. Yeah.
I imagine there has I know like when cranes are involved and stuff, that can kind of get weird maybe sometimes.
Yeah. Main thing is generally, as long as you're not way outside of your wind limitations and it's not too much trouble.
Yeah.
We got some really, really good crane operators and signalers and riggers. So,
sounds like you work for a pretty good company then.
Yeah. I work for Mortensen Construction, and they're an industry leader. A lot of people don't know they build NFL stadiums, and they're based out of Minneapolis, Minnesota. They built the Viking Stadium. They're currently building the Las Vegas Raiders Stadium. They're huge.
Yeah.
Wind is just a little drop in the bucket.
Fair enough.
Compared to their whole company.
Gotcha.
And Mortensen's a leader in wind, which that tells you how big of a company it is.
Okay. So how long have you been in it now?
It's 2019.
Yeah.
3 years.
Okay.
3.5.
Yeah. Do you see yourself continuing to do it?
For now, it's one of those things that's really good if you're single. And
Yeah, I mean, it seems like it could be a really good lifestyle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you're single and you don't have any ties to home, get after it. But I mean, if you have a wife and kids at home or someone special to you, you're not going to be home very often at all. So, and naturally, that's kind of a hard thing to get relationships started if you're on the road. So,
right. What do you like to do whenever you're out alone on the road?
I find shooting ranges.
Yeah.
And if I'm anywhere within any kind of, my definition of a reasonable drive is different than most people, but if I'm anywhere close to the mountains, I'm going to end up there. Yeah. So
3 hours.
I have gone 10 hours just to do a one night backpacking trip and turn right back around and drive back. So,
okay. You found a spot you wanted to go to. Huh?
Yeah. Wyoming, Colorado, California.
Yeah.
I went.
Well, I mean, like, where'd you drive to for 10 hours?
So I was staying in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, working in Laverne, Minnesota. It's about an hour drive to work every day. And then I drove from Sioux Falls, South Dakota, all the way to the Bighorn Mountain Range in Wyoming. And it was about 10 hours one way.
Gotcha.
And totally worth it. I did a solo trip there in the Wyoming backcountry and had a moose up in my camp. And there was not a single soul within probably 10 miles in any direction.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Do you have a camper, or how do you live?
I don't have a camper. When I was doing Major Component Exchange, which is a different division of the company, you move so frequently that and you do so many miles that, in my opinion, it wasn't worth the hassle of dragging around a camper.
Yeah. Setting it up every night.
We get paid per diem, so stay in the cheapest hotel I can stay in without being in a really rough area.
Yeah.
And
like you say, you're single, you don't have to.
Yeah. I don't have to coddle anybody. It just stay somewhere relatively cheap, save the per diem money.
Yeah, for sure.
So it can fuel another adventure.
No doubt. So you did hike the Pacific Crest Trail. I guess when did the drive for that start? When did the idea start?
So I was working in.
Because you never done a big hike. I mean, have you ever done a big hike before?
No, before the Pacific Crest Trail, I'd done one or two like multi-night backpacking trips.
Yeah.
One of those being in Montana. So I was working in South Texas in new construction. They said, hey, we need you to go to Major Component Exchange. It's a different side of the company. You're going to be doing a lot different work. Need you to be in Illinois tomorrow. 3 days later, after I made it to Illinois, then they're like, hey, scratch that. Now we need you in Colorado. So I went to Colorado, did my week of work there. And they said, okay, well, we need you in California. Can you be in California in 2 days? And I was like, well, yeah, I mean, I'm new. I'm not going to tell you no.
Yeah.
So, on my way to California, I punched in the address, and it gave me two routes. And I could either go one way, not anywhere near the mountains, and there was a mountain route that it said it only added 2 hours. And I'm like, I'm driving through the Rockies. So I did it. And then I was coming up into the Rockies past Denver, and I said, it's early September. I bet I could find a really awesome day hike, and I kind of calculated in my head I have enough time to do it and still make it to California. So I stopped at a little shop in Breckenridge, bought my first pair of Solomon hiking boots, and went and did this amazing day hike. And I'm like, I'm hooked now.
Yeah.
I want to hike. And I knew I'd always wanted to hike and backpack, but just never been in a position to do it.
Well, I mean, you've always been a hunter. You've always been out in the woods and stuff, yeah?
Hunting, any kind of outdoor stuff, whether it was fishing, hunting, shooting in the woods, whatever. It was always kind of an adventure. I mean, you never know what's going to happen day to day. It's always a kind of a puzzle you have to put together. So, yeah, then I made it to California, and I was like, well, I don't know anything about California, but there has to be good hiking out here. And so I started looking around. I was like, wow, Yosemite National Park, Sequoia National Park, all this is within 4 hours. So I started doing tons and tons of day hikes anytime I had a day off. Well, that wind farm I was working on in Tehachapi, California, the Pacific Crest Trail runs right through it, and every day I had to drive over the road crossing that the PCTers take. So I was like, what's the PCT?
Yeah.
I looked it up, and I was like, I have to do that, but that's crazy. I'd have to quit my job, and there's no way I can do that.
Yeah.
And then, down the road, it just kind of turned more into a reality. So
yeah. So I guess, what happened? You saw an opportunity to stop for a while?
Yeah. I guess I'd been working for 2.5 years or so. And I mean, you're working anywhere from 50 to 80, 90 hours a week, every week for that whole time, basically. Yeah. And I was getting to a point where like, I need to take some time for myself and kind of figure some things out. So, I would say probably a year and a half before I actually started the PCT, which was April of 2019. I said, you know what, now I'm committing to this. This is a serious thing. It's going to happen. Started getting serious about saving money and applied for my permit and got one. So, yeah.
Then obviously some planning started.
Yeah, I didn't go too crazy with the planning. I completely nerded out about my gear choice and getting my weight as low as possible, but I didn't stress about I need to ship a box here and there and all these different places where I might need a resupply. I just said, I'm coming in with my pack and the things that are on my back, and I'm not worrying about anything else. I'll figure it out as I go. Yeah. And that proved to be really good.
But I mean, I guess specifically with the Pacific Crest Trail, like that's pretty easy, right? Like other big long trails, not necessarily that capable.
So you're talking about as far as resupplying?
Yeah.
Yeah. From all the hikers I've talked to who've done other trails, the AT is probably the easiest as far as logistics, because you never go more than 2 or 3 days without resupplying, other than like one little 100-mile section.
Gotcha.
The PCT, I mean, like in the Sierras, for example, there was 8 to 10 day sections where you're not getting out of the Sierra Nevada mountains.
Yeah.
Like, yes, you're not just jumping across over to a road.
For sure.
So, a little more planning there, but it's not very hard to plan.
Yeah. But I guess what came down for you is like you said, gear. Like you ended up shipping some gear some places, I guess. Yeah.
So Kennedy Meadows South, which is basically the beginning of the Sierras, the entry to the high Sierras, shipped a bear canister, which is required for most of the Sierras. Shipped a ice axe for self-arrest, slipping and falling on ice, which this year was a record snowpack in a lot of places. So that was definitely a necessity.
Yeah.
Micro spikes for a traction device, and some different layers because it was a lot colder. But
yeah. So you went Nobo, I guess.
Oh yeah. So this year especially, there was a lot of names thrown around, like as far like labeled, like there's northbounders and then there's true Nobos, which went straight northbound, didn't skip any miles, didn't flip up and come back south, because I'd say majority of the hikers either quit or flipped and started going south because they didn't want to deal with the snow.
Gotcha.
And I told myself back before I started the trail, I'm not flipping for anything. So.
Yeah. Are you entrenched in the culture now, like on Instagram and stuff? I know there's
a little bit.
Yeah.
I know I'm on, which I don't get on Instagram that much for some reason, but I'm on, I follow that page, Ultralight Jerk.
Yeah.
That's kind of funny. But,
yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of different facets of through hiking. You have people who just carry an absurd amount of gear, and it makes you physically ill to see how much they're carrying.
Right.
And then there's me. I'm probably considered an ultralight snob, but
yeah, I feel like Yeah, that's true. I feel like I would try to fall somewhere in between there, I guess,
Yeah.
as much as possible, but I haven't done anything ultra long. I tried to do Eagle Rock Loop one time, but
I've
and
done most of that one.
yeah, I ended up getting like my knee started flaring up, and
Yeah.
I was like, I'm just gonna bounce out. Got to ride with some old hippies back to my truck. They had literally met like 3 days before. It was really strange. But
Dang.
anyway, that's another story.
Yeah. Yeah, you never know what's going to happen with the hitch.
Yeah, yeah. And I guess you did a bit of that.
Oh, yeah.
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 So, and you started out with some other people or by yourself?
I started out on my own. I would say pretty quick. You kind of run into people and like, well, I'll hike with them a while. They seem pretty cool. And because especially out of the gate, I was telling myself, don't go too hard. Don't go too hard. Just you have plenty of time. Just build your strength up. And yeah, I mean, you're gonna find somebody to hike with if you want to.
Right.
And if not, then you can just do your own thing. But I would say the people you meet are one of the biggest things about the trail that's so cool. It's just meeting people from around the world and making friendships. So
yeah. And so I had questions. They go away sometimes. I guess talk about some of the people that you met. Maybe something will pop up in a minute.
Well, let's see. We got Wild Turkey.
Yeah.
From Virginia.
So what was your name? I guess
my trail name was Yeti.
Okay.
And so no one gives themselves names unless we know if you gave yourself your own name. Let's just put it that way. So my name was Yeti, which was given to me because most of my crew went ahead of me because I was having some issues early on in the trail, like 300 miles in with my IT band in my knee.
Gotcha.
So I gave myself an extra day in town to rest up and stretch and yada, yada. So next day I ride with some other hikers up to the trail, and there's this peak called Mount Baden-Powell. Well, it was still snowing in May, blizzard up there. We get to the trailhead, and everybody's like, all right, well, yeah, we're not going to the top. We're walking the road over to here, and we're skipping Baden-Powell. And I'm like, well, I'm not skipping anything, so I'll see y'all later. And I was solo and summited Mount Baden-Powell by myself. Well, I was coming down from the peak in a whiteout blizzard, wind blowing 20 to 40 miles an hour.
Yeah.
And I see this group of people through the snow, and it ended up being some people I'd met before, but they were like, who is that guy by himself on top of the mountain? Like, he must be a Yeti.
He must be a Yeti. That's awesome.
So, and that one stuck.
Yeah, definitely. So were you were pretty, like, you didn't have many layers on at that point, right? Or did you already?
I had a wool base layer on, and I had a Gore-Tex hard shell on.
Yeah.
And that was fine because I was exerting pretty good.
Right.
After that climb.
Yeah.
But
I feel like, I don't remember what I was going to say now. I feel like you finished the trail relatively quickly.
Yeah, for sure. Especially once I got out of the Sierras, we started hammering miles hard. Like,
was that a conscious choice, or was that just like?
Yeah, it's I don't know what it's kind of like. I guess I don't know anything about distance running, but it's kind of, I would feel it's kind of like that. Like once you start hammering miles, you start feeling really good, and you're just like, oh, like if you don't, like in Oregon, if you don't do 35 miles in one day, at least for me and some of the guys I was with, we felt like we were slacking. Yeah. So.
Well, it's like you do go numb, like at a point, you're just going so fast, like you.
Yeah.
Is that you get that feeling?
Average 3.5 miles an hour, and you finish the day, you don't hurt.
Yeah.
You wake up in the morning, you might be like a little stiff, and it goes away within the first 20 minutes of hiking.
Yeah. So at that point, you were thousands of miles into the trip. Or you were 1,000 miles into the trip.
So like South Lake Tahoe is kind of more or less the end of the main Sierras, and that's 1,090 miles in, I believe. So, And then once you hit Oregon, I don't remember the exact number there, but yeah.
So I guess how long, like when did you pick up the miles and how long did you sustain that?
Started picking up miles as soon as we hit Northern California above Lake Tahoe, and we were doing high 20s, low 30s. And then once we got to like Southern Oregon, then we just started really hammering like every single day between 35 to 40 miles. And then by the time we got to Northern Oregon, it's probably, I would say, where we peaked. Me and a guy by the trail name of Shuby, we did a 40 miler, and then we woke up the next morning and we're like, well, let's see how many we can do in 24 hours for the 24-hour challenge. And we did 61 miles.
Wow.
In 24 hours. So
that's awesome.
Yeah. And that was with a pretty big break.
Okay. That's pretty epic.
Yeah.
You were definitely moving there.
Yeah.
I guess, who did you hike like an extended period of time with, or was there?
Shuby, the guy I was just mentioning.
Yeah.
Don't know exactly how many miles. I'd say probably somewhere in the 1,500 mile range.
Wow.
And then Wild Turkey.
Yeah.
From Richmond, Virginia, and probably about the same or a little bit more with him. So, and Turkey, I did the whole Sierras with, and that's really the most tense section of it naturally with the kind of stoke pack they had. I mean, there were some pretty scary moments.
Yeah, I can imagine so. Imagine that.
River crossings and huge exposure to falling and slipping and
that'll build
rockfall.
That'll build a bond.
Yeah,
between some people. I noticed. I know you, at one point you were talking about the snow, like you were talking about post holing real bad and stuff like that.
Yeah, every evening, usually it seemed like around 2 or 3 o'clock, it would just get just soft enough, and you'd just be walking, and then, bam, fall through to your hip in snow, and you fight your way back out and take 2 more steps, bam, fall in again. It's just nothing you can really do about it.
Yeah, imagine that's a defeating feeling, though.
Yeah, for sure.
But you don't really have an option other than to keep moving forward.
And then once it gets to that point, your feet start getting soaked. And I don't care. So many people think that they're going to come in wearing Gore-Tex boots in that shoulder transition season from like spring to summer when everything's thawing out. If you're wearing Gore-Tex boots, your feet are still going to get wet.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to do river crossings. Unless you take them off on every single puddle or river crossing, they're going to get wet.
Right.
So, and wet feet's probably maybe one of the most demoralizing things. But
how did you? I mean, we talked about how quickly did you finish the trail? That's a good question.
So it took me 145 days. April 28th to September 18th. And I mean, we didn't push it. I mean, we went slow through the desert because we knew how much snow was still in the Sierras, and I lost my train of thought. What was I about to say?
But you were concerned about that.
And then we took there were some times where we took 2 or 3 days to go up to what they call trail days in Cascade Locks, the very northern part of Oregon before you get into Washington. And there's a bunch of vendors there that have cool stuff for backpackers and food, and everybody sets up on this peninsula on the Columbia River, and a good time.
Yeah.
Time to take a little bit of a break after you've been hammering so many miles. So.
For sure. It wasn't. I guess you still found time to enjoy it. Not that you didn't enjoy it the whole time.
Yeah.
I definitely. I saw you moving so fast and doing the miles, and I never thought of it like how you were saying. You get into that zone, you get into that trance, and you just keep moving. Yeah. I mean, I get that now because I'm running so much, but it makes sense now that when you put it in those terms.
And I mean, and there's some days where. It's a grind. You wake up and you're like, I won't say that I never wanted to stop hiking. I just needed a few days break. Because, I mean, every single day you're like, I got to hike 35 miles today. That's that you're going to be hiking from daylight to dark. No questions asked. So,
for sure.
But yeah, you just push through. Some people couldn't really deal with that. You'd be surprised how many people quit like 1,000 miles in, 1,700 miles in, 2,000 miles in, either from injury or just like they just say, I can't deal with the grind anymore.
Yeah.
So.
But you only had the one time where you kind of got a little...
Yeah.
had a little hinge.
Yeah, that IT band on my left knee. I was coming down from Mount San Jacinto, which is in Southern California, still in the desert section, and there's a decline that's like 14 miles long, and I think it was like 7,000 or 8,000 feet in descent.
That sounds terrible.
At one time,
That
just
sounds terrible.
down, and it will wreck your knees.
Yeah.
But yes, when it first happened, it just felt like somebody stabbed me in the knee, and every step I took downhill it was excruciating pain, and I was thinking the worst. Like, man, this is not good. There's something really wrong with my knee, and then I had to hobble another 60 miles into Big Bear. That was the next town we got into.
Man.
So, I did, once I got into town and got some reception, I did some reading and research, and everything I read said it's IT band issue, probably overuse. You need to stretch and just build the strength up in the IT band, and never had an issue again. And I had one blister the entire trail.
Wow.
Yeah. I think probably
was hiking, that were you conscious of that? Were you consciously taking care of your feet all the time?
Yeah, absolutely. Anytime you get a chance to wash your feet off, do it.
Yeah.
Carry an appropriate amount of socks that you can rotate out. I mean, after a few days and you're walking in like dusty or dirty stuff, I mean, you can literally just hold your sock and it looks like a board.
Right.
And then anytime there's like any kind of little pebble or anything, any kind of debris in your shoe, if you feel it in there, just stop. Take the shoe off, dunk it out, and put your shoe back on. And if you, for through hiking, you wear a shoe, like I wore my shoes loose enough to where I could literally just slip them off, dunk it, put it back on. I found that out early on too, a little bit of pain in those ligaments that go on the, whatever they are, from your foot to your shin there.
Mm-hmm.
You leave your stuff even remotely tight, they'll start bruising up from big miles. So ended up having
wearing
super loose
these
shoes.
shoes most of the time?
Similar to these. Once I got out of the Sierras, I went to just straight, more or less trail runners. And yeah, I mean.
But you were wearing those in the snow?
Not these ones. Some Solomons that they make that are like this cut, but a different sole and a lot more aggressive sole.
All right.
If I was to start the Sierras again tomorrow, I'd have one that the same style, super lightweight and breathable, but come just over the ankles so that they would be a little better fit with crampons.
Right.
Because I started out with micro spikes, but then I quickly learned that like I needed a little bit more bite in the snow and ice, so I got some legit crampons.
Well, you were there at a time where it was needed, I guess.
And some people say, well, I made it okay with micro spikes. Well, yeah, you can get by, but if it's a step between me and falling to my death, I won't. I want all the bite I can get.
Issue, I'll take the couple extra ounces.
You'd be surprised how many people ask me, like, why do you have a helmet? And I was like, because I don't want to die.
So you carried a helmet for a bunch of it or some of it?
So yeah, after I climbed, now this was in the Sierras and all the snow part, but after I climbed Mount Whitney, which is the highest peak in the lower 48, still completely covered in snow, loose rock fall, sheer ice walls we were climbing up, like not vertical, but steep, and like we were kicking our own steps in to make it up. And I told myself in my mind, if I ever make it down this mountain, I'll have crampons and I'll have a helmet, because we had rock fall come right by us, and some people had some as big as a Volkswagen come down. But
that's crazy. That had to be a really intense time.
Yeah, it's not chaotic, but it's just tension, just constant tension.
Yeah.
And it's just a big sigh of relief when you finally get back down.
Right. Because, you're just focused on the next step and moving forward the whole time.
Yeah. And
but you realize that it's pretty dangerous.
So the best way to put it is like, at that point in time, it was no longer through hiking. We were like light mountaineering.
Yeah.
We weren't walking on an established trail. Most mountaineering accidents happen on the way down, and a girl actually did fall on my way down, just a little ways in front of me, and she was wearing micro spikes, and she still slipped. It wasn't enough bite, and she slid like 80 feet and hit a boulder and went flying up in there and hit another boulder. She wasn't wearing a helmet or anything like that, and she got really, really fortunate that she wasn't like severely hurt.
Yeah.
She was shook up and beat up, but called in a ranger on my little Garmin device, and they dealt with the situation.
And you were able to help her or get help for her.
Yeah, and some people think the Garmin's little satellite communicators are just they're too out of hand. It's like, oh, you don't really need that. And I was like, generally, I would agree with you, but the way I look at it is, for 3 ounces, why would I not carry something that I could get help to someone who was really hurt? Whether it be in the high Sierras where someone fell, or it could be an older man on trail that had a heart attack and needed help, but there's no cell phone service.
Yeah.
There's a lot of different things. I mean, we had a hiker pass away, unfortunately, from a tree falling on them, and from what I've been told, it took a long time for them to get service, to get help.
Yeah.
And then there was some mix-up between the responding agencies, but you just never know what you're going to run into. And for 3 ounces, I would like to have something that could help.
For sure. It's cool that you still have that servant mindset about that. And
there's so many people like, oh, well, nothing's going to happen. We'll be fine. But generally, I think that's people that haven't seen death up close.
Yeah, that's fair. I think that's a fair assessment.
Most people go their whole life and never see a true traumatic situation. And if they had, they would probably take a step back and take things way more cautious in certain areas. But so, yeah, a younger crowd, a lot of them haven't seen that. So it's kind of hard to explain that to somebody if they haven't seen it. It's just one of the things you have to experience.
Yeah, that you bring up another good point there. Like, how did you fall in an age bracket of the trail?
I would say now there's a survey. I think it was at Halfway Anywhere, something like that. A guy does a big survey of all the thru hikers, and from what I remember, like 26 to 30 was actually the biggest age bracket.
Okay.
And then a lot of low 20s and early 30s.
Yeah.
And then you have some outliers in 40s, 50s, sometimes, hikers 60s or 70s. So
yeah.
There's people who made it all the way. They're just a lot slower.
Yeah. So, what do you think about like the opposite, like going southbound, I guess?
I think it would also be really cool. This year, there was way more southbounders than in years past. I mean, the trail's just growing in popularity every year, naturally, with social media. And, I think it would be pretty cool to be ending your hike in the desert. Probably be a lot, not nearly as hot. We got lucky, and it wasn't that bad this year, but it could have been. Yeah, it could have been straight night hiking, or you would be in trouble.
Yeah, I never really thought about that. You just go become nocturnal.
Yeah, you pretty much have to. There's hardly any shade out there, and little water.
Whenever you hiked 24 hours, was that the only time that you hiked at night, or?
Not the only time, but one of the few. I didn't have to. Mainly, I thought I was going to have to do it in the desert, but yeah, every once in a blue moon, maybe hike for 2 or 3 hours. Once it got dark, but usually that was just us getting on trail late and coming back resupplying in a town and then getting back to trail and let's make it to here.
Right.
But Yeah, the desert. I don't know what was up with the desert this year. They had a thing called an atmospheric river, and it was just dumping rain and snow into Southern California, and it was abnormally cool. I mean, I would say the average day was probably somewhere between 30 to 50 degrees and raining.
Wow.
We got rained on, I think, 18 times by the time we got out of the desert section.
Wow.
Which is unheard of. Your friend Chance that was on the podcast,
Yeah.
I think I remember him saying on there that they got rained on maybe 2 days the entire trail.
Mm-hmm.
It was 18 days for us in the first 700 miles of desert.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
And you met Rachel at some point.
Yeah, that was pretty crazy. I think I was in the Lassen Volcanic National Park up in Northern California. And
But she may still be on trail. I'm not sure. She's still posting stuff, I guess. Maybe.
Yeah, she's finished.
Okay.
I think she's just been kind of slowly trickling out her
Fair enough. Content.
journal.
Yeah, that's fair.
But yeah, I was hiking and I came into this group of people and they're like, "Hey, you're from Louisiana. Have you met such and such hiker? She's from somewhere in Louisiana." And I was like, "Oh yeah, I think Dan had told me about her. If that's who I'm thinking of," and it was. So
Yeah,
that was pretty crazy.
That's wild. So what was the finish like, I guess?
I couldn't really enjoy it the way that it had envisioned. I knew I was probably going to end up just getting torrentially rained on in Washington because that's just how it goes up there. But
yeah,
I didn't realize how bad it was actually going to be. It was the last 3 days of trail. You get to this spot called Hart's Pass. And from Hart's Pass to the northern terminus where Canada is, the finish of the trail, it's 30 miles. And from that point all the way to the terminus, dumped on. And it was 30 degrees outside. And if I went, or colder depending on elevation, if I was at lower elevations, I was getting rained on. If I went up to 7,000 or 8,000 feet, snow. And then I'd get back down. It would turn into ice up there on my jacket, standing ice on my jacket and all my clothes, and then I would get down, and then I would just be soaking wet. And I still had my summer gear because I didn't think that it would make it there in time for me to not have to sit there and wait on it. So I just rolled the dice. And I wasn't at a point where I was going to die, but I was extremely uncomfortable. I couldn't feel my feet for 3 days. My hands were swollen. Everything was pink. Unless you've been soaked for 3 days with no fire,
right? Yeah.
It's 30 degrees outside. It's hard to explain. But.
Yeah, I mean, imagine that's a mental fortitude time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Was that the most difficult part, or?
I would say it was probably a toss up between that and that issue with my knee, because
that's just demoralizing.
That section that I was talking about where every step I took for 60 miles felt like somebody was just cranking inside of my knee.
I can't imagine that. Because I went 3 whenever my knee was messing with me.
So, I think I was more worried about my knee, but at that part it was the most demoralizing. Just okay, I'm ready for this to be finished now. This close, and I'm this miserable physically.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things. That once it's over, it's over. The pain I felt then, I can't feel it now.
For sure.
Whatever.
Fair enough. So didn't you and your brothers go out in the backcountry at some point?
Yeah. That was in 2017.
Okay.
We flew up to Glacier National Park and did a 3-night, 4-day trip. And we had some bumps in the road on the way there, but it was a pretty awesome trip, which interesting thing about that, carrying way too much weight. I was still a novice. And
were y'all going hunting, or were you just going?
We were just backpacking.
Okay.
Doing a backcountry loop.
Yeah.
And I wish I'd had a fishing rod or something, but because it was some amazing trout lakes that were just untouched. But so we had been struggling. We had a big day. It was like a 15-mile day, up 3,000 feet overpass, down 3,000 feet, and then all the way back. And then we got rained on the next day. And the last day we were getting ready to come out, and we had this big climb out to the Ptarmigan Tunnel, which there's an article. It's called 70 Leg Burning Adventures in the West.
Okay.
And the Ptarmigan Tunnel is number 1 on the list. So, and we're not like in mountain shape.
Right.
And
yeah,
I just remember being at the
boys
bottom
from
of this.
Louisiana. It's kind of hard to do so.
For sure. And no real prep work before that.
Yeah.
And before we made that last climb, after we had been out there for a few days, I was still kind of throwing the idea of through hiking around in my mind, and I thought, maybe I'm not a through hiker. Maybe I'm just like a weekend warrior. Like maybe I don't enjoy it that much. Made it out, and after I had time to recuperate or whatever, I thought about it, and it made me so mad that I told myself that I was like, this is unacceptable. So,
yeah.
And then I went from there and ended up doing the trail. So
that's awesome. Do you have any plans to do any others?
Yeah, I don't know when that will be because of current life plans, when I'll be able to take that kind of time off, but maybe something like a 2 to 3 week trip. I would really love to do the John Muir Trail again.
Yeah.
Which runs in conjunction with the PCT for a good while, but I'd like to do that again with some family. If I can rope Casey and Griffin and my dad into doing it.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, if I do another true long distance trail, it'd probably be the Continental Divide next, which is actually a little longer than the PCT and a lot more remote.
Yeah.
But
that's the one that's always been like driven me, like always had my attention.
Yeah, for sure.
I have zero desire to do the AT.
Yeah, I wish I had more
the whole time.
Yeah. And the guys that like Wild Turkey, for example.
Yeah.
He's one of the guys who had done the AT before the PCT, and he was thinking about quitting in the desert because we got rained on so many times in the first beginning. He's like, I came to the PCT because I didn't want to get rained on, and I'm getting dumped on, and I just can't deal with this.
Yeah.
But yeah, he stuck it out, and I'm sure he's glad he did. But yeah, everybody asks. For some reason, our region, people are way more familiar with you tell them you did the PCT, and they're like, oh, I think there's another trail called the AT. And I'm like, yeah, it's one of the big 3.
Yeah.
I don't have much desire to do the AT. I mean, if I did the Continental Divide Trail, I'm sure I'd want to do the AT.
Right. Just to knock it out.
So I can knock the big 3 out.
Yeah.
But I think that to me, it seems like the AT is more of a community thing. Like, I mean, there's a joke that if someone's hiked the AT, they'll let you know within like the first 30 seconds of knowing them.
Okay. That's funny. Well, yeah, I mean, I know that there's like you said, there's like it's a lot more, you run into population a lot more there.
Yeah.
But there are some other big trails, like in there, like a coastal California trail.
Yeah, I know there's that. And there's like the Pacific Northwest Trail. There's the what's the name of that one? There's one up there in like the Great Lakes region, the Superior Trail, I think it's called.
Okay. They're building something like across the country right now. It's like Rails to Trails or something.
Is that the one that was supposed to be a continuous bike path across the country?
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty crazy. I think I'd heard about that.
Yeah, they're like piecing it together, I guess, now. But they're just like using sections of existing stuff and trying to build new things.
Huh.
I don't know. I think it would be pretty cool. To like bike pack or whatever.
Yeah.
Have you ever thought about any of that stuff?
I haven't. There was one guy on trail that after he did the trail all the way to like the northernmost part of the Sierras, and then just decided I'm not going to hike it anymore. I'm going to ride a bike. and rode it all the way to the northern terminus. And he took it down the PCT, his bike, and went up to the terminus, which you're not supposed to do. And I think he got fined. But
wow.
Yeah, I guess he found a love for biking.
He rode a bike like down the PCT?
No, he took roads after that, but for some reason he felt like he needed to end on the northern terminus. But I don't know, like it didn't make sense to me.
Yeah, because isn't it like 3 or 4 miles out of the way?
You're talking about
like the northern terminus, like don't you have to like turn around and walk the same trail to get back to wherever to get back to town?
So when you hit the terminus, you got to go 30 miles back to Hart's Pass. Where I was talking about, I got just dumped on.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
that's like a whole other day.
Yeah, for sure. Because
how did you get back to wherever?
So I got back to Hart's Pass. And it was a slight break in the weather, so there was a couple people up there. There was one guy who was doing some trail magic and had some food and drinks for hikers, and then an older gentleman was up there, and I got to talking to him, and he said he was up there checking trail cameras because he was a longtime resident and hunter. And he's like, yeah, I'll ride you down to the name of that little town escapes me right now, but just right down the mountain on the most dangerous Forest Service road in the whole country, according to statistics. But
wow,
sheer vertical drop offs. So I was glad to be with someone that wasn't their first time up there.
Yeah,
I got down there and I went to another Trail Angel's house, and I was like, well, do you have any cardboard or anything? I need to make a little sign. And I made a sign saying PCT hiker to Seattle, because that's where I was flying out of. The guy dropped me off there and said, all right, well, good talking to you. Good luck. I was standing there for 45 seconds, and a car whips over and says, hey, you headed to Seattle? And I was like, yeah, I'm trying to catch my flight. He says, well, that's where we're headed. Jump in. So that quick, 45 seconds, ride all the way to Seattle, which was like at least a 2-hour drive.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's epic.
Yeah.
They took you straight to the airport?
Yep. I say to the airport, I just told him drop me off at like close to the REI, because I was still filthy, like nasty filthy.
Yeah.
So I bought a set of clothes and some new shoes, chunked all my old clothes, threw them away, and then I went to the hotel and got showered up and everything, and flew out the next morning.
That was another question that I had earlier. You washed your clothes at some point? I mean, at random points along the trail?
Not on the trail, but like if we went into town to resupply, I'd wash my.
Did you go to a laundromat or something? Yeah,
laundromat. If you're lucky, your hotel would have one that was free, or usually a laundromat.
Go talk to the maids.
Yeah.
Hey, can you throw this in there?
But yeah, and then you have to do a lot of pre-washing, because it's hard to describe how much dirt can actually fit in a sock, like inside of the fibers. But for 5 minutes on one pair of socks, you would just be wringing it out, and it would just be black, brown, just out into the sink or whatever. And you could do that for the next 3 weeks, and you wouldn't get all of it out. So, but you have to do it, because if you don't at least get a good chunk of it out, it's going to mix in with everything else.
Yeah, yeah.
And I mean, most people were carrying 2 to 4 pairs of socks. So,
how many pairs did you carry?
3. I'd have 2 to hike in and 1 to sleep in. Other than the Sierras, I was kind of crazy. I carried 4, but I mean,
a pair of socks to sleep in, a pair of dry socks to sleep in.
Yeah,
just to like soak up some moisture.
Nice, clean, dry socks, because you don't want to be getting a bunch of dirt inside your sleeping bag either. Yeah. Some people thought that was overboard, but I never had I had that one blister, so dry feet, I mean, they're king.
Yeah.
Moisture is the enemy, so.
What did you eat along the trail?
Absolute junk.
Yeah.
Peanut butter, tortillas, Snickers. I mean, like in the Sierras, I was packing out like 18 Snickers per resupply.
Rand, this is weird. Did you ever you brush your teeth every night? Like you bring a
Yeah,
toothbrush?
yeah. I get asked that a lot. Like, did you brush your teeth? And I was like, yeah, I'm not a caveman. Yeah. I didn't carry deodorant. I mean, that's pretty much pointless.
Right. Toilet paper?
Yeah. That's another subject of contention with some. There's different. As far as the leave no trace principles, you should pack your toilet paper out.
Right.
Some people don't even use toilet paper. They do what's called a backcountry bidet. And
find a nice stream.
Pressurized water and a little device on their bottle. And I'm not knocking it because I haven't tried it, but I don't know.
Fair enough.
I would think the packing it out, if you have a good bag to do it in, it's not bad, but that's another thing. That whole deal, it's odd at first having to dig a hole every time you need to use the bathroom, but it becomes so normal that when you come back home and you're like, I don't have to dig a cat hole. It's just like a toilet. Like, this is weird, but
did you use a shovel or a knife or? Yeah,
I carried a trowel that was like half an ounce or something.
Wow.
And some days it would be easy to dig a hole, and some days you would dig and dig and dig, and you like make it this far into the ground, and you're just like, what do I do?
Yeah.
But I'm trying to remember what we were talking about before that. You were asking about toothpaste and something.
Yeah. I got distracted. I guess what do you have planned for the future now?
So right now I'm just working, trying to save up some more money. At the end of April.
Do you have a house? Do you like?
Yeah, I have a house. Base? Just in the neighborhood across the street.
Okay.
People say, why do you have a house? You don't even really live there. And I'm like, well, houses aren't getting cheaper, so I should probably invest in one now.
Yeah.
But sometimes I wish I didn't pay the note on it, but it is what it is. And so back in October, I actually enlisted in the Army National Guard. I'm trying to move towards something in aviation, and I need to get my degree as well. So I'm like, well, I signed a contract for what's called a 15 Tango, which is a UH-60 Black Hawk helicopter mechanic, and that specific MOS is also a crew chief. So I'll be on the flight crew, maintain the helicopter, and it's a good feeder position to get into warrant officer school so that you can get into flight training and figure knock a few things out, do some service, have school paid for so I can get my degree, finish that out, and also have them, get flight training. So knocking a few things out.
Jordan, you really like to get high, don't you?
Yeah. Yeah. I love being just anywhere where I'm above everything, the surrounding area. And it's funny because I used to be deathly afraid of heights, and now I love it.
Yeah. I mean, there is something about climbing a mountain that is just so empowering.
Yeah. The most otherworldly feeling in my life ever was climbing Mount Whitney, the highest in the lower 48 out of Alaska.
Yeah.
Under a full moon, in the snow, and then you're standing on the highest peak, and just 360 degrees you can see for hundreds of miles in any direction. It was the most surreal thing ever. Felt like I was on another planet.
So you have to go to boot camp?
Yeah. Going in, later than most. I mean, I'm 28 now, so I'll be going through with people right out of high school, so I'm sure I'll be considered the old man.
Yeah. Yeah. When is that? When are you doing that?
April 28th is when I ship out, and then I'll do 10 weeks in basic training in Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, and then 14 weeks for advanced individual training in Fort Eustis, Virginia, which is not too far from the DC area.
Gotcha. That's exciting.
Yeah. I don't know exactly what to expect, but just hammer away and you'll be fine.
Yeah, I love it. You've made some gigantic decisions, like changing things in your life. I mean, it's cool. That's awesome that you're just pursuing whatever you're passionate about at the time.
Yeah, and I think it's better that I'm doing this now that I'm a little older, because I'm a lot more just experienced on my own and knowing how to fend for myself thousands of miles from home.
I was about to say, and I mean, you've, for lack of a better way to put it, you've been hardened already.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, you've seen some shit in the jail, and you've experienced hardship in that, and hardship and physical and
yeah, for sure.
I mean, you do whatever the hell you want to, dude.
And that some people ask me, like, what's one of the biggest things you took from trail? And I was like, I kind of already knew it, but it kind of cemented the fact that, like, if I decide that I'm like for something and I put my mind to it, like, I mean, barring me being physically disabled, like, right, I'm gonna do it.
Yeah.
So,
you ever listen to David Goggins?
I haven't yet, and I know I need to. I know him and Cameron Haynes have been doing some stuff lately, and there's some guys on trail early on that were talking about David Goggins. And I know enough about him to know that dude's a savage, like a true savage.
I would encourage you to listen to his audiobook. I wouldn't say read. I mean, you can read the book if you want to, but he reads the audiobook, or he does like intermissions in between chapters, and it's very motivating. I think you would enjoy it before you shipped out. It would definitely kick your ass in gear, make you go run some miles.
Yep.
Well, dude, I appreciate you coming on. I'm very thankful for you. This has been awesome. I really appreciate you.
Yeah, I enjoyed it.
I really wish you the absolute best of luck.
Appreciate it.
Look forward to seeing where you end up and what you end up doing.
So, yeah, I appreciate that. Interested to see how your podcast takes off. I really enjoyed it on trail. Kind of something to just kind of get you in a different headspace sometimes when you've been going too many miles and just too much in your own head. So and you listen to that, and it's like some really cool stuff to listen to.
Yeah.
Some of the ones that I was like, well, I'll just listen to it, and then I ended up really enjoying it. So that was really cool too.
Good deal. Well, I appreciate your support, and hopefully we'll catch up with you some other time.
Sounds good.
Thank you.